local hangouts. You don't spit into the mic. You don't go respond to those work emails, and you don't mess around with shit. You do what I Season 2.
Season 2. It's been a while.
I have work to do. I have a goal this season after ranking all the albums and seeing that like you had like a good section in the top 10. I was like, all right, I can't just showcase Canadian albums. I need to get in my good musical taste so I can get in that upper echelon.
If I can take a brag to second, numbers 3 through 5 in the top 5, all mine.
Yeah.
But I like the thought process. I like the effort. You picked a Canadian album this week. We'll get into that. But guys, welcome back to the Turntable. As Brooklyn alluded to, it is season 2. Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, that was the stupidest, corniest thing I could have said.
It's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a second rendition. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a great panel today. We were supposed to have Cameron Holtzman with us, but unfortunately, things happen. Cameron sent his thoughts, his scores, and all of that stuff. So I will be reading those as we go along. But let's go ahead.
Say like the reason that we picked this panel. These guys are all they're all semifinalists for the Like 500 Takes Invitational. If you have been following along with that, congratulations, you're a good crew. But their semifinals matches will be coming up pretty soon, and then we're going to be recording the undercard and the finals for that very soon. That's going to be exciting. Some great questions coming up there. But yeah, let's introduce the rest of them.
Yeah, as Brooklyn alluded to, all-star crew, all pretty knowledgeable when it comes to music. Let us start with Kirk Kolakowski. Kirk, good to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Andrew. How are you?
Oh, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to lie.
I hear you. Good. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. If we're ranking musical knowledge, you're starting from the bottom and work your way up, I assume, which is fine. It's fun to, stretch some muscles you don't usually stretch and have conversations that you might not usually have. So I'm glad to be here. Like you guys said, a lot of cool people on the panel today. So I'm excited.
And tell us, Kirk, what did you bring to the table today?
I brought Maggot Brain by Funkadelic.
Nice. And let's bring in our next guest, staple, host number 3.
Host number 3,
technically.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It's Amaru Moses. What's up, man? How's it going?
I mean, when have I not been on this show? You're going all right. Hella busy like everybody else, kind of tired, but always glad to come here and think I can have music knowledge to talk about. I'm assuming you're talking about everybody else when you say that. I have genre knowledge. Music, I'm all right. But anyway, I love being here. Love talking about it. Good to see you, fellas.
Thanks, man. And what did you bring today?
I brought The Incredible True Story by Logic.
All right. And let's bring in the guy who I think we can all agree is probably like the most knowledgeable about music, like chords and stuff like that.
Well, it's considering what he does for a living.
Yeah. It's Big Papa himself, Jeff Varu. What's up, buddy?
Y'all put me on a motherfucking pedestal right now. I mean, yeah, I get it.
Pressure.
He has all the instruments in the background, one after the other, after the other, after the other.
I mean, there's a couple more that are hitting over here too. So, but no, I love being on this show. I mean, I love talking music with people. I say we got an incredible panel. Say anytime I can be with Rhye and Kirk and Bar in Brooklyn, it's always a good time. This is always a great time. So very excited. Oh, and look, one of my kids made it into the background. It happens to happen. It is in the contract.
Hey.
She's waving. So yeah,
record time, I think too.
So we're within 5 minutes. So
yeah,
we're gonna do one of these now.
All right. Well, I brought "Woman" by Rhye. And
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. The album I brought is you're good.
I'm
The
a
album
terrible host. Why do y'all let me do this?
I almost did your job for you again, and that would have been in record time, but I let Jeff take that.
Jeff, go ahead.
The album I brought is Mission Bell by Amos.
All right. And Brooklyn, what did you bring today?
I brought Come On Over by our queen, Shania Twain.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to announce the order of the episode because I forgot to tell our panelists because, once again, I'm a bad host. So we're going to start with the Hadestown original cast recording. That was Holtzman's pick. Then we're going to dive into the incredible true story. Then we're going to go up to Canada for Shania Twain's Come On Over. Then we're going to do Woman by Rhye, Mission Bell by Amos, and then close it off with Maggot Brain by Funkadelic.
And not last.
Wow. Not last this time, Rue.
Yeah.
I'll take toward the bottom of the pack. It's fine.
All right. So we're going to be starting with Hadestown, the original cast recording. I have Holtzman's statement here. He says, thoughts. I go back and forth between this and Come From Away as my favorite musical, but on a pure music level, I think this one takes the cake. The jazzy feels from the start works so well, and that's coming from someone who generally does not like jazz music. Andre de Shields' voice opening the musical as Hermes is just perfect, and Road to Hell sets the story and characters up really well. The 1-2 combo of Come Home With Me and Wedding Song is just fantastic, and how it sets up the relationship between Orpheus and Eurydice. I keep wanting to say Eurydice for some reason. If you look at the spelling,
you're not a die, you're a dice.
Living It Up on Top is solid, although Persephone is probably my least favorite part of the show. Chant is one of my favorite tracks, the way it perfectly establishes the vibe of the underworld while also showcasing the vocals of Patrick Page. I'm going to butcher these names. Ava Noblezada and Rave Carney. It makes it such a great addition to the soundtrack. Wait For Me is one of my favorite tracks in the show. The vocals from Carney are just magical, and I love the way it really shifts the story to Orpheus' perspective and showcases the peril of the journey. Why We Build the Wall is an incredible showcase of Patrick Page's deep bass voice. Our Lady of the Underground is my least favorite track, especially where it's placed in the stage show, but it serves its purpose well enough. Our Lady of the Underground opens Act 2, for those of you who don't know. Flowers is a beautiful, heartbreaking ballad from Eurydice, and after that, it's a string of a few short and not terribly exciting songs, but then we get to Epic 3, an absolutely incredible song. Beautiful track narratively and vocally, the way it perfectly sums up who the characters are, all while sounding so amazing, is just remarkable. And then shortly after that, we get the Wait For Me reprise, my favorite song in the show. The way it improves upon the first version in every way with instrumentation that makes you feel the mounting pressure of the task at hand and incorporates even more characters. It just comes together so perfectly. And Ava Noblezada's solo verse at the end is just magical. The way the final two songs emphasize the tragedy of the show, but still celebrate the story and end with the idea of hope that maybe one day the story will end happily, wraps up the show perfectly, and prepares you to listen to it again. One of my favorite albums of all time, a jazz folk Greek mythology musical that should not work as well as it does, but it comes together to form a beautiful work of art.
What did they say was, what did Cam say was his least favorite song?
Our Lady of the Underground.
All right.
So, I'm going to do the thing before Brew does it. Has anyone listened to this before?
I have.
Oh, interesting. All right, let's start with you then, actually, Brooklyn.
So yeah, I listened to this for Adelaide's episode of Setlist,
Oh, that's right.
Their favorite musical, and I dug the hell out of it to the point where I would say that if I was to ever go down to New York again, I would go see this musical. Probably a top of my priority. Love the instrumentation, kind of speaks to everything that I like. Accentuates the low brass, like even right at a Road to Hell, you get that nice like trombone kind of solo or whatnot. It kind of has the spotlight there. I also really like Andre de Shields. I like his voice. I could listen to him sing a cookbook, and I think I would be intrigued. I do agree with the 1-2 punch of "Come Home with Me" and "Wedding Song." I think there are some cool moments there. The epic trilogy is also good. The thing that I really appreciate though is Patrick Page and his vocals, because bass vocalists are are far and few in between. So when you can find one, or when you need one for this role, it's such a great note to have, especially coming off of like Rhye Carney, who has that more like tenor alto-y kind of sound. So they kind of
almost
match well.
in a sense.
Yeah. But no, like each instrument or each kind of section kind of has a chance to shine. In particular, which one is it? The Papers instrumental kind of gives the drums a really cool chance to shine. My one gripe though is that it gets not the play itself doesn't get repetitive, but there are songs that definitely like repeat the same lines, and it's like, given how deep the story is and how intricate the characters are involved, it's like, why are we, like, for example, like why we build the wall. Love Patrick Page part in it, but the chorus in that is like you get tired of hearing the wall after so long.
I could not agree with you more, to be completely honest, Brooklyn. First of all, I will say thank goodness for this show, because basses in general in Broadway recently, in like years, almost decades now, have had zero love. Like, there are no longer parts ever written for basses, and it's such a dumb thing because their vocal range is so cool and interesting. It's perfect for character pieces. I think that, so I've never listened to this, and all of my, there goes my pen. All of my theater friends tell me like that I'm crazy for never having listened to it before. Because my biggest problem is with like musical theater recently, everything sounds exactly the same. There's so much of a formula to it now that everything just sounds exactly the same and it all blends together. And this one kind of falls into that trap every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'm like, oh my God, I hear the thing that I hear in every other musical made in like the last 15 years. A lot of like the Orpheus stuff in particular. But then you do get really interesting stuff in here. You get Papers and Come Home with Me, and the opening track, Road to Hell. I actually added it to my workout playlist because that groove is actually like really good. It's just like, it's one of those things where like I think jazz and folk generally tend to be the best genres for musicals. Um, and this one, it's really good. I understand why, but this is an album show. I have to judge this as an album, and sometimes the production, you can tell that they have a very limited budget. Because sometimes it sounds great, and other times it sounds super canned. But I want to hear from all the people who aren't musical people like myself. So go on, good.
I'll start. So I absolutely love Greek mythology. Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief is my favorite book series. You would have thought it was Harry Potter. It's not. And I love the show. Fuck those movies. Greek mythology, I love getting into it. If I saw this as a play, I probably would enjoy it. You're right. Andre DeShields just reminds me of he reminds me of if Keith David wanted to play a voodoo priestess, but with a higher voice and not that bass voice.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, if you like him, the voice that he reminded me a lot of is Charles Bradley, a soul singer who has he's had a couple of big hits in the last couple of years.
I can see that.
Okay. Yeah. So here's the deal, though. This is not a play. This is an album, and 2 hours of songs that are not built like songs drag the hell on. So like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse. If it's longer, I get it. But I'm sitting there and 5, 6, 7 minute songs. Like, when is this shit ending? When is this song that I just heard 3 songs ago and then 4 songs later ending? I'm sorry. I don't like Patrick Page's voice on an album. Everything I say here, don't put it to the play. Put it to an album.
Does he remind you of somebody that I know that you don't like? Maybe.
No, you know who he reminded me of? And he reminded me of, why do I keep forgetting his fucking the guy who was just the actor who was just on The Penguin. He does all the voice work. He plays oh my gosh.
Oh my God, he's in Shawshank Redemption as well. Why am I blanking on his name as well?
Parallax and Green Lantern, that always comes up. Whatever.
Clancy Brown?
Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
I thought of Clancy Brown immediately. But anyway, I was ready for this shit to be over very, very, very quickly. I tried to get into it, think about it as a show, but as an album, it just does not work, and I cannot. And I was so like, I went through 17 songs, and I was like, there's 19 motherfucking songs. What are we doing here? What the fuck are we doing here?
Yes.
With this, like, I would love this play. Would love the voices. And I also couldn't help but think that Rhye Carney sounded like the adult singing voice of Simba. I was like, what? That's who I heard. And I was just like, I don't like that voice on an album. Yeah, I was not a fan. It dragged the hell on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen. 5 minutes have gone by in the song. I'm done. Next song. Let's just get rid of it. I'm probably going to hear it again down the line in like 3 songs from it. So.
It don't matter, Kirk, if you want to go first or what.
Yeah, I'll go. That's fine. Yeah, I understand what Rhue's saying, but I kind of came at it knowing that it was going to be a different experience, and I know the basic story of the musical, obviously, but I didn't know anything about what the kind of music was or anything. So coming in, I was worried, okay, am I going to just kind of be lost here? Because I'm the same as Rhye. Like, I love mythology, and I love when you take stories out of time and kind of recontextualize them in a different setting. I'm a big fan of doing that, and I think that's my favorite part of this, is how well it captures the mood that it's trying to invoke. Just by listening to the music, I could not even really necessarily engrossing the lyrics, just the music and the voices. I understood what the story was about and what I was supposed to feel. And I just love, I don't know the names of the singers. I think it's Hermes is the narrator, right?
Andre de Shields.
Yeah, his voice, and then and then Hades, I think, just sounds so good. They just capture that old timey, gramophone, scratchy record kind of feel to it. I just really love just that part of it, and I found myself kind of just getting into it from that aspect. Like I said, I could feel the story, if you know what I mean, based on what I was listening to it, and I kind of got caught up in it. So I enjoyed that, and yeah, it is long, but like I said, I knew going in that, okay, this is not going to be a 10-track album of 3 or 4 minute songs, and yeah, it is hard, especially if you haven't seen it, you don't have a visual reference for what's happening. That always makes it a little bit harder. But I think the best musicals, you can listen to the music like this and without a frame of reference and still enjoy it. And I think this qualifies as one of those.
Yeah, kind of voicing a lot of the sentiments that everybody's been kind of doing right now. So you're talking to somebody who is a former pit orchestra person right here, trumpet player for at least 2 shows in high school.
Nerd.
Hey, no dissing band geeks on this show. You want to go on timeout?
Thank you.
Oh, we'll get to timeout later, Brooklyn. I promise you.
So approaching a Broadway musical is, you kind of have to. I approached it more from the musical standpoint of the composition and how it drives the narrative. I love the mythology. Taking Greek mythology and putting it kind of in a modernized way has worked really well. And I like what they're trying to do with this. And I love the style of music they're doing, this kind of like Southern gospel, American Gothic kind of sound, even like jazz elements. Like there's a lot that really works well. And like some of the songs worked really good. Like Wait For Me was good. Flowers. Hey Little Songbird. I remember listening to this and I remember going, I'm like, this reminds me of Friends from the Other Side from Princess and the Frog. So like, I just remember it made me associate with that. The problem I have with listening to a Broadway album when I haven't seen the show is it makes me feel disconnected because I'm trying to piece this with something visually and it feels it's like I know there's something more grand at stake here and there's something that's begging to be told and it's going to be like this will make more sense, but I can't judge it off the visuals right now. So I have to judge it based off what I'm hearing, and that's where it's like I'm having a hard time trying to make a connection with it, and that's where it gets difficult.
To go along with that, like towards the end of the album, like everyone starts singing about like something happening to Orpheus, and I went, wait, did I miss something?
Exactly.
Because like obviously I think that there's like a visual thing that happens that doesn't get picked up in just the album.
And that's just it. It's like when you're approaching this blind, like I've heard of the show, but I've never seen the show. I was not familiar with the music or anything like that. So I went in pretty blind. So you listening to the music before seeing anything, it's like I kind of know what's happening, but I don't know what's happening at the same time. So it's kind of frustrating in a sense because it's like I want to see the show, but now it's like I kind of feel like I know what I'm going to expect. I don't know what I'm going to expect at the same time. So the music was enjoyable. It makes me want to watch the show. It makes me want to see the show, but judging it based off of what I'm listening right now, it's kind of hard to really give it a fair shot right now. And it's kind of, it's a little difficult to give it a fair grade.
So I have to ask, am I the only person who doesn't think that Wait For Me is that good? Like all of my musical theater friends, like that's the song that they performed at the Tonys. That's the song that they perform whenever like they're doing like any talk shows. Everyone seems to love it. I remember thinking Wait For Me is one of the weakest songs of the show, personally.
I mean, I'll say it right now, it's not my favorite off the album, but it was a solid song.
It's the one, like you were talking earlier how musical theater can get very formulaic, and that's the one that feels the most like it kind of hits all the beats that you would want out of a Broadway. Yeah,
it feels like the big like ensemble group number, but something just feels really hollow about it for me for some reason. I even when I watched it on the Tonys, them doing it, I was like, what is this the show that everyone's losing their goddamn minds over right now? So I don't know. That one I needed to read the room on that one personally. All right, but it sounds like we're kind of getting ready to move on with this one. Any last thoughts before we get into scores and tracks? Yeah. Okay. So let me read Holtzman. Holtzman obviously gave it a 10 out of 10. Holtzman says the best track was the Wait For Me reprise towards the end of the show. And they said the worst track was Our Lady of the Underground, which I disagree. I think Our Lady of the Underground was really fun, personally.
Is that how you pronounce that word? Is it reprise and not reprise?
Reprise. I think
potato tomato. I
think it's a potato tomato thing. Yeah. So for me, where did I put my notes on this one? I gave this a 7.2 out of 10. I see the strengths of it, but then there are also the moments where I feel like it just doesn't work. Either that or it's trying to play up to like the modern day Broadway audience. My favorite song was All I've Ever Known. Their two voices, the two playing the main characters, their voices blend together so beautifully well. Orpheus and Eurydice. their voices just harmonize and just come together incredibly well, and that's just like a really beautiful piece. It's one of like maybe 3 songs I would go outside of the album to listen to. Why We Built the Wall was the worst song for me. Easily. It was just stagnant. So, and that's how you end your first act. What a weird way to end your first act. Let's go to Brooklyn next.
So, in the context of a Broadway, I would give this a 9 because I still want to go see this. I'm still excited to hear about the story. In terms of the album, though, I think I have to go 7. Yeah, let's say a 7. It's weird that Cam has Our Lady of the Underground as his least favorite because that is my favorite. I love the moment where it just stops and you hear like the Our Lady of the Underground, and you can almost hear them do the jazz hands like while they're saying it. It also has one of my like favorite moments that doesn't involve like the play or the script at all. It's just them introducing the band and giving them kudos, which you don't get a ton of. And it's not like we're gonna stop everything to thank them. Like they're still playing the beat, and then they still like anytime you introduce somebody in that setting, they just kind of have like a 2 little second like little solo, and that's great. My least favorite is Chips Are Down. I think this was one of the other big ones that came off of this Broadway. They were like, hey, you need to go check it out. But it sounds so out of place for what the rest of the play is doing. And like I was alluding to earlier, it's incredibly repetitive.
Kirk.
Couple years ago, my daughter and I started a tradition. We go to New York every year and we see a show. Every time we've done it, I've talked about Hadestown, but that's never been the one we picked. And unfortunately, we have our tickets bought for this year's show, so I can't do it this year. But I think next year, based on list this now, I definitely want to go see it. I think the tour was in Pittsburgh last year, and I missed it. I'm bummed out about that. But it's something I definitely I wanted to see before, but now I've heard the music, I really want to see it. I'm going to give it an 8. I understand everybody say, but it's really hard for me to separate like the album from just the quality of the music and what it's supposed to be. So I'm not holding that against it as much as everybody else is. My favorite track was Chant. I think it was I just love the feel and sound of it. Reminded me of something like Over the Garden Wall. If you've ever seen that, just like that kind of like spooky, ominous feel to it. You just get a really like perfectly understand from that song who the character of Hades is, what his relationship is with Persephone. I think it just captured on so well. And his voice is just so like good, but like creepy and just kind of like, oh, so I really enjoyed that. My least favorite was, I think it's called Epic 3. That to me, what you were saying about the other one, the one song bar, is how I felt about this. I think this was the one that was most like kind of like generically Broadway and didn't have a lot of depth to it. It didn't make me feel the way a lot of the other music did too. So that was my least favorite. But I liked everything I heard.
One thing I want to add before, because I forgot to mention this. Hades reminds me a lot of Tom Waits in this show.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, let's go to you.
So again, this is going to be kind of like this might seem a little unfair, but I'm going to be as kind of fair as I can be. I'm going to give this a 5.5 right now, simply just because again, I have nothing visually to base this off of. So I'm basing this just off of an album. And it's not fully complete. So I think meeting in the middle of the road seems mostly fair in this regard. Best song for me, it would probably be If It's True. That was like the one song that to me felt like the most complete, like where you can listen to it and not have to feel like you need to understand the grander story. This feels like it can work as a song on its own, released like as a single. So, and I thought like the performance was really well and just compositionally worked really nicely. Worst was sadly going to be his Kiss the Riot, which Patrick Page, again, I love a good bass timbre voice, but this song just kind of drug, the fact that there was no percussive and it was just like a really brooding like piano. It just kind of was like, all right, let's wrap. It was only like a 3-minute song, but it's like, let's wrap this up a little bit. Like this is kind of like dragging a little bit, but ultimately, yeah, I do want to see this show. But basing it off the album, it's a little difficult to give it a fair grade.
All right, and let's go to you to close this one out.
It's a 5. It is a dead in the middle 5. I had so much difficulty getting through this, and so much more because I kind of with Jeff. It's the show I think I would really really enjoy. With singers I enjoy, individual songs I enjoy watching it with it, but all together back to back to back, just trying to get through it. It was just tough. It was just real tough. My favorite song is I think Anyway the Wind Blows. I just really enjoyed the female chorus throughout. They stood out immediately. Easily my least favorite song is the Come Home With Me reprise. Because when I heard it, I heard, am I trapped in the closet? Come into the closet? Are we in the closet? That's what I heard. And then at one point they'd say, come. And I'm like, are we in episode 735 of that man's thing right now? So like I heard that. I was like, thank God it's a minute because
All right. Oh my gosh.
Best comment of the night right there. That was the best.
All right. Well, look at this, Brooklyn. You math genius, you. That brings the total cumulative score for this album to a 7.117. I'm sure we're gonna have higher scores than this. So let's in fact go to the man who just closed it out, Amaru. Tell us about the incredible true story by Logic.
So Logic right now is a very divisive figure in the hip hop community. His mixtapes when he first came out were really, really good. Love his first 2 albums. But then, especially when he came out with the 1-800 song and maybe a run of like 3 or 4 albums after that, people were just calling him corny as I don't know what, with like his race, social topics, anxiety, things that people should be talking about. But the way he sounded, a lot of people put that over him. And what I'm really, really happy about is that he got to a place where like he retired, put out a album called No Pressure, which was a follow-up to Under Pressure. And it was really good, kind of back to what people really liked about it. And ever since, he's been dropping really, really good albums. Like Ultra 85 that came out this past year is probably one of my favorite albums from his since what I loved about him. And what I loved about him was his first 2 official albums. And I had a really hard time trying to figure out which one to pick. It was Under Pressure or this one, An Incredible True Story. And I ended up picking An Incredible True Story because while I believe Under Pressure is a better album, lyrically, flow-wise, and not by much, but like it's more of the lyrical album. I just feel so good when I listen to The Incredible True Story. It is vibes personified on top of everything I love. One, he's a big movie fan, and this concept album of these 2 guys in a ship finding a new inhabitable planet after Earth blew up with Spike Spiegel himself, the voice of Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, playing the captain, like that already just hit all my nerd sensibilities. And a lot of the beats and the sounds are real sci-fi rooted. And it really, like, this is what I love about Logic is that he says it a lot, but he can hit any kind of hip hop style you want. He has the storytelling vibes. He has lyrical ability. His rhyme schemes, his ability to put words together in different rhyme patterns with multi-syllable words and having them hit in a whole bunch of different places. He can. He often has this thing where he has this alter ego called Bobby Tarantino, and he says a lot. I can do the boom bap and I can do the trap. Bobby Tarantino was the trap guy. Logic is the boom bap guy with the lyrics, and he has those kind of songs in there. He has a pretty okay singing voice, and I think this is the album that actually highlights it the best. I'm not saying he's a great singer, but he utilizes it the best in this. But more than anything, his regular producer, Styx, is a fucking genius. The instrumentation he uses to put beats together on everything that he does, no matter how corny he may sound in all of it, you can never doubt the production of a 6-beat on a Logic album, starting with Contact, with those drums hitting with all the 808s and everything, putting you in this mood of being on the ship. And then you get Fade Away and like Whoa, which are two of my like just if I want to feel good. Like you hit the sax on like Whoa and it starts going in, and I am just like so damn happy. It also happens to coincide that song came out when I was on Hollywood Game Night. So I was just like, let's go. When I heard that song, Fade Away is probably one of my favorite songs to run to. And then I talked about the trap type beats. I Am the Greatest is just hype personified with the slower flow, with the sample of Muhammad Ali in the background. And this is another divisive thing from him, but I actually don't mind it. He also pays homage to a lot of people. And some people think he kind of bites flows, bites sounds, bites music. I know he studies the game enough, especially in his early mixtapes, that anytime he does that, he does it as showing love to those people. So Lord Willin' is 100% a Childish Gambino song. Paradise is 100% a Bone Thugs and Harmony song. City of Stars was definitely inspired by 808s and Heartbreaks by Kanye West. But just every single song on this album, this is a no skips album for me. I have a least favorite. I have when I get to it, I have a tie for second favorite, but every single song for me just makes me feel so damn good and just lifts my spirits. Because you get everything, every aspect of hip hop and every aspect of what Logic actually does well with. It's in this album. And I will say, I hated so much how much hate he got in terms of like those albums that weren't really good and where they were corny. Cause now I go back and listen and I'm like, damn, there are bars that are repetitive. There are themes that are a little repetitive when it comes to Logic, but as an actual MC, being able to break down his lyricism, his themes, the way he breaks down different flows, the way he can go in and out of like a rapid fire flow to a slow flow to a braggadocious flow, all in the same song and all of it hitting the same way. I just really love it. Like in Upgrade, when he references Fifth Element, it's just literally everything about me as a person is kind of embedded in this album, including the mixed race thing. I'm not white, but still, it's just there, and I connect to it so much. And I just, it is. I think everybody, like when they list their top 10 albums and certain things of all time, they usually have the one album that like nobody else would have, but it's there because you absolutely love it. This is number 10 on my list. This is my, like, I don't give a shit what you think. I will play this album from front to back. And when I get to the end and low-key tear up a little bit because I've been following this story with these guys all the way to Paradise and they end it with the word life, I'm like, just run that shit back. Just run it back now and run it all over again. Makes me want to hear where the story goes on. I from the first time I heard it till now and being able to listen to it again, this album just fills me up with so much joy and passion, and I love every bit of it.
All right. Floor is open for anybody who wants to start, because I'm going to save myself for a little bit.
I'll go, I guess.
Oh, okay, good. I was about to say.
You're good.
You're deciding people.
No, you're good. I got it. I was like, first of all, I just want to say, Rhye, that whole monologue about you just talking about the album, this is why the show works so well, is because we get to talk about the stuff that makes us feel happy and makes us feel genuinely good about something. And hearing the impact it had on you is just heartwarming to hear, as saying, hearing stuff like that. I
appreciate
love it. So yeah, love hearing that. So Logic. So back when I worked at my like hockey gig, he came and performed a show at the arena I worked at, and I wasn't 100% familiar. I knew the 1-800 song vaguely, and like I was like, I have not much knowledge about this guy. All I knew was he didn't sell that many tickets, and it was kind of like a show that they're like, we're just gonna kind of see how this goes. But I kind of respected him a bit, and like I remember looking him up a little bit more, and he reminded me of that nerdy kid that studied a lot of rappers and is like, how can I take this and apply it to make this something my own? So I didn't really listen to him like too much. So listening to this album, I was surprised. I was definitely surprised by like what he was capable of in terms of I mean, let's just attack the nail on the head right now. A white rapper. I mean, they're not that common anymore. It's really to hear somebody with the flow like this is respectable as hell. You know, I mean, like just starting off, Fade Away. Like I remember listening to this, I'm like, okay, like we got something here. Like this guy like can definitely hit some rhymes. It was funny that you mentioned like he like referenced a lot of classic. Yep, gotta get him into. Yes. Hi, everybody.
We got them both.
Yes, we got them both. Hit the bingo card. It was funny you mentioned like how you're like, this is like a Childish Gambino song. This is like a Bone Thugs Harmony. I think it was on which one? Young Jesus, like you said. It reminded me of Nas a little bit. And I actually wrote down Bone Thugs and Harmony. I'm like, I'm getting a 90s East Coast rap kind of vibe right now, which perfectly fine with me. I absolutely loved that. I liked a lot of like the instrumentation with it. You can tell he really respected like using the 808s really well and using like a composition that challenged him, but in the same sense too felt like that it was rooted in something and that it had some sense of creating something grander. Some of the stuff got a little too ambitious and a little too like it's kind of falling into like that filler category and falling into like kind of like the category, but Lord Willin', I thought the lyrics were incredible on this one, and the composition overall, I was like, this like really hit with me. And then the Incredible True Story, the closing track, the title track, even I'm like, this just was like the perfect way to close out this album. It was really strong. Everything seemed to work really well with it, and it kind of tied together the grander story. Yeah, I was like, you don't hear many rap concept albums. So this was one of those that I was like, I liked what he was doing. And I think he can do even better with a little bit more refinement. And it makes me want to explore some of his later work now, because it's like, I know this was kind of like in like the midpoint of his career. It makes me want to
this was actually his early official career, because this was only his second album. If you want to do that, I would say definitely look into Under Pressure first.
Okay.
Under Pressure first, and then go to his like discography backwards. Because like from Everybody I kind of like, but from Everybody, like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is just trash. It's just not good at all.
That was the album I think he was touring with when.
Yeah, it was not a good album. But like those two, all of his Young Sinatra mixtapes, beautiful. That's what got me into him. And then from No Pressure on until Ultra 485 is like really like I ignore that middle section completely.
Yeah, honestly, but overall, like I liked where he was with this, and it kind of makes me want to see. It's like you were definitely onto something here. I want to see where you can go from this now, because it's like you had a lot of good ideas, and I think he was able to use this as like a jumping point to further even more. So overall, I liked the album. I thought this was a really solid album, and curious to see what everybody else thinks.
I think that the album is very solid. It kind of falls into the category of I respect this album, its ambitions, its ideas, its technical abilities, and all that a little bit more than I necessarily loved it. I think first of all, the instrumentation is absolutely incredible. The production itself is really cool. It is an album that I can, if you asked me to get within like 1 year of what year it was released, I think I could do that, because it is kind of that era. That's not a bad thing, because it did kind of remind me a lot of the like that era where Childish Gambino was like really big, and like then there was like this kind of sound, and it kind of exploded for a bit. I think my biggest problem with Logic is that sometimes he kind of gets what I call like Big Sean syndrome, where he tries to fit too many syllables and too many words in at the same time, and it kind of becomes jarring, and it kind of disrupts the entire flow of the song. Sometimes it works incredibly well. And then there are moments where like, so I'm not gonna lie, the moment I heard "I Am the Greatest," I immediately threw that shit on my workout playlist. Like I was lifting weights to that this very morning.
Nice.
And so like I appreciate the fact that he's able to do all of these different sounds and flows, and like like emanate like the artist that he kind of is showing his respect to. I will say there is one moment where it was immediate. There was no questioning what was happening here, and that was on City of Stars. It started, and I immediately went, "This is flashing lights. This is graduation era Kanye West." It got to the point where I was like, I almost forgot what I was listening to, and I thought it was that song. Overall, yeah, the other problem I had is that some of the skits worked really well at building the world and all that. I thought the skit White People was fucking hysterical. Like, it was the one time that they heard the distress call, listened to the tape, and went, now we're going to skip that one. Like, that was so great. But it did get a little up its own ass. Like, I admire the message, but it got a little preachy. But overall, I think it's a very solid album.
That's funny that you say that. Just that kind of mirrors what people kind of like or don't like with Logic. They think he gets a little preachy and it gets into the corny kind of territory. And for me, those skits, Steve Bloom does no wrong to me. So if it's because it's him doing the preaching, I'm like, sure.
Oh, the performance.
So I can't. I see it, but I can't knock it. I will never knock it because that man can do no wrong.
Yeah. So I dug this. I really liked the concept. Contact as an opening song is great. Kind of gets you into that atmosphere and kind of what you're gonna get into. There's some really cool lines that I dug, like an upgrade. Let me bring in the new kicks like Timbaland. And Babel, like the scene Babel. We won't find paradise. We'll make purgatory. Which I thought was a kind of a cool line to talk about, like exploration and what can kind of happen if we do too much of it. When I saw that there were scenes in this initially, I was like, all right, like I hope they serve a purpose, and they definitely do the whole time. The cube doesn't really, but I dug that personally as a former Rubik's Cube like collector. So any song that references them is a great hit. Intermission and I Am the Greatest is an incredible 1-2 punch. Intermission is incredible. I love the chill aspect of it, and then you go right into I Am the Greatest, and it's just like it's almost like that's like that end of the first half in the second act. All right, here's what we're gonna do. I do want to talk about the ambition, though, that kind of like Jeff and Andrew were alluding to, because I do appreciate what he's doing for like the off rhythm stuff. Reminded me a lot of Under 3000. My problem with it, though, is that it felt like it was there just to be there. Like, it didn't feel calculated. When he was trying to come out of it, it didn't feel natural. Like, they almost had to like kind of soft reset the song to get him back into tempo. It eventually does work. Like in Paradise, that's where the off rhythm stuff kind of works the most. But there's like you're already talking about City of Stars. Lord Willin was another good one. I love the beat in Run It. And then I'll save my favorite song for the end.
I thought it was a good album. I love the concept stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun. I do wish that it had leaned a little more into that, and maybe there's more in the lyrics of the songs that I may have missed. But I just enjoy that idea of a concept, and you're saying like how it gets kind of corny. I kind of find it refreshing, like hip hop that's not afraid to be corny. It's not putting up a front; it's just being itself. Like you said, all the movie references. I love all that stuff. That was a lot of fun. The music itself, he does a lot of this type of hip hop that I'm not a huge fan of, and I don't know what it's called. I'm sure there's a name for it, but it's where you have like that repetitive beat and that repetitive cadence over and over and over and over again. He does on some of these songs. It kind of lost me there. I don't think it's bad, and I know it's like a display of a lot of like skill and talent to do that. So It's just not a sound that I'm particularly interested in. And as the album went on, like I was listening to this while I was at work, and it got real easy for like towards the end, kind of like fade in the background for me, which is not bad. It was fine to be listening to, but like it wasn't. I didn't feel as engaged in it towards the end. But I still think like like you guys say, like he's doing a lot of different things and he's trying a lot of stuff, and I like that. Even when it doesn't necessarily work that well, I enjoy just somebody who's throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
You are muted, son.
Muted.
No.
Boo. I've got one more thing to say now that I remember it. The balls. The absolute balls for him on this album to write in a sketch. This is the album that changed everything about this album. I respect it. You gotta live up to that shit when you say that, though. So I don't know if he quite got there, but I respect him putting that on the record. So good on you.
For me, that line specifically, because I've kind of followed his career, I don't put it like he's gonna brag and he's gonna say it is, and like he often calls it a classic. For me, it is. I would agree. I would understand it for other people. It isn't. I take all of his like every word in this album is in his world, is in that world he built that is actually built out across a whole bunch of albums, including like Ultra 85. So when he said it changes the world, I was like, oh, it changes his world that like blew up and now they're looking for paradise. So like, I'm like, all right, cool. Because you're also a dude who wants to write a screenplay and film a movie. Like that's how much he's into movies. So
I'm going to get into Holtzman's thoughts real fast. Not sure how I felt about the concept. Felt a little much for him at the start. Basically what I said. I'll admit I have very little experience in rap as a genre, so the skits on the album felt weird to me, although I did pick a musical soundtrack, so maybe I can't judge. It's impossible to deny the flow and wordplay on display. The sheer speed from Logic and Upgrade is really impressive, and some of the wordplay in Like Whoa is fun, even if I don't really love the whole Like Whoa part of it. Big Lembo is a great feature on Young Jesus. Didn't really think that I Am the Greatest worked for him, between the sample repeating the title to the verses themselves. Lord Willin has a great vibe and loves the flow of it. Stainless was weird because it started off weak but finished strong. Last few tracks are all just solid, although I can't say I found anything too remarkable or special about them until the finale. I did not vibe with it. The amount of auditory dissonance was too much for me, and the flow and lyrics did not do enough to make up for it. Just a messy track and a disappointing closer, but the album overall is pretty solid and enjoyable. All right. So with that, let's get into scores. I will tell you that Holtzman's score is a 6 out of 10. Holtzman's favorite track was Lord Willin, and his least favorite track was The Incredible True Story. I kind of disagree with that one.
But
I thought
real
The
quick,
Incredible...
Yes, Cam, you definitely don't know hip hop if you just said you didn't like the whole thing of Like Whoa. You don't know Black Rob apparently, and you don't know there's a whole damn anthem in New York called Like Whoa. So take that as you will.
Let's go to Kirk next for his score. Oh, wait, hold on, Rhye. Let's go to you for your score because this is your goddamn album.
For some reason, I always thought we went last, but I don't know. But sure, whatever. For me, it's a 9.5. For me, I definitely, again, especially retroactively, I can see some of the flaws in it. But flaws and all, I absolutely 100% adore this album. No skips for me. I know there's dips. I know there's rises, but every single song, I absolutely love listening to. My least favorite track, I was going back and forth. If you could call it a least favorite, I was going back and forth between The Incredible True Story and another song, and then I heard The Incredible True Story again, just the basis off the fact that it was so long and a lot of different parts, and I was like, yeah, it's not that. It's City of Stars for me. And again, it's not a song I don't like. It's just it's a kind of carbon copy of Flashing Lights, but not at the same level. It's a little bit too far in between the different times he's singing. But then I forgot, and he hit the second half of the song where he starts rapping. I was like, this is why I like this song. Okay, yeah, I always forget about that. So just by default, City of Stars is my least favorite.
All right, Kirk.
I'll go 7 on this. I think there's stuff on it that I personally didn't love, but like I said, I appreciate the attempt, even on the stuff I didn't like. But there's some stuff that worked for me. Like I said, there's a lot of different styles on here. My favorite song was Young Jesus. I think it like you said, there's a real throwback to it. It's right up my alley. And also, I will say that I was listening to this at work, and I had 2 screens up, and I had it on YouTube. And for some reason, every track on the YouTube playlist was the image was just the album cover, but Young Jesus they had the video on. And I don't know if you've ever seen the video, but it's a great video. It's like it's very like it feels a lot like Sabotage, where basically Logic and
Young Limbo.
They play multiple roles. They basically play everybody in the video, and they play carjackers, and they also play the police arresting the carjackers, so they're arresting themselves. It's a lot of fun. It's a really good time. I think it just captures like the energy of everything we're talking about with him. So I really like that. My least favorite. I think Like Whoa is my least favorite just because it has that sound, that repetitive sound that I'm not a big fan of. But like I said, I'm not saying it's terrible. It's just not something that I personally appreciate the most.
Speaking of, because I never mentioned my favorite track. I only went to my least favorite. It is a tie. I cannot choose. It's Fade Away and Like Whoa. They represent the same thing for me in a slightly different version of just feeling so damn good. Again, that saxophone, when it hits at the beginning of Like Whoa and he gets into the instrumentation, I think it might be the best beat on the album for me. And then Fade Away, it's my favorite flow of his. It's my favorite lyrics of his. It's my favorite combination of everything. And again, I hit that and I start running and I am going full speed. Those two are just beautiful to me. I love both of those tracks to death.
So I am in lockstep on score with Kirk. I also gave it a 7. Actually, did I change it? No, yeah, it's a 7. As I said before, album I greatly respect. Just for some reason doesn't quite connect with me as much as I would have liked it to. My favorite song on this is I Am the Greatest. As I said, if you make my workout playlist, it means I want to listen to you over and over and over again. But I do want to shout out Young Jesus because that was super close. Stainless. That was my least favorite one. That is the one where I just I cannot remember a single thing from it for some reason. So
even Rhye's voice is just so different on that song though.
I can't even think of what they sounded like.
The chicks singing on the chorus.
Isn't there another song like that as well?
Not at that speed, but yeah, because like Upgrade and Intermission are a little bit similar.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Stainless is just a lot different than a lot of stuff on the album to me.
I think that one just gets that one by default, to be completely honest. Jeff.
So grade, I will give this a 7.5 out of 10. So this was a solid album. I liked a lot of what, like the throwback stuff, like the overall lyrical scheme. It can get a little like wordy and like kind of like slow down, son. Like
whoa,
like whoa, like slow down like a little bit. I think of the Drew Carey show skit when they're testing out the guitars and Dave Mustaine does the like really fast one. It's like slow down, son. Don't be nervous. I kind of want to say the same thing to Logic. Just slow down a little bit. But favorite track, I'd go with Lord Willin'. I liked the overall lyrical structure of it. I liked a lot of what he was saying in this, and it just seemed to connect with me the most. One I will say is an underrated gem, Paradise. I actually like that one a lot. I like the chorus from Jesse Boykins. I thought it was a nice breakup from what we got there because the verses were a little in that one. Worst, City of Stars. I would say Rhye hit the nail on the head. It just took way too long to get started and to get something going there. And once it finally did, it was just way too slow compared to what we've gotten up to that point. So it was just kind of like this just felt really disjointed and almost like not even a B-side, but a C-side at this point. So ultimately, it was a solid album. It definitely makes me want to explore him a little bit more and give him a little bit more respect.
And Brooklyn.
All right, so I have the second highest score of this. I'm giving it a 7.75. My favorite songs. 1 second here. My favorite song was "Young Jesus," and it has a very on-brand line. Whole lot of beef, no bread, no lettuce. Just loved the hell out of that. Least favorite. It was going to be "Fade Away" purely for how he says the word "away." That seems very much like a producer note. Like, it's going to be May. Fade away. But I would agree with Andrew that "Stainless" is my least favorite. It's just like I couldn't. Like, there were no notes to really take on the song, so like not necessarily a bad song, but yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and then the score. The score is a average score of 7.458.
Nice. Okay, so let's move over to Mr. Canada himself to talk about Canadian Queen Shania Twain. Go ahead, Brooklyn.
Yeah. So Shania Twain, big deal here. Still touring to this day, even though her tickets are a tad overpriced. This album came out in 97, so it would have been like 4 when this came out. My parents had this in the car, so we would listen to it quite a bit. Songs still get played to this day. "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" is a song that needs to be played by every bar band because it gets the women and the men up as well. And it's a great song. About this album in particular, because I'm normally I'm pretty critical about like fiddles and kind of how they sound in country music. This is the only album that I'm like excited to hear the violin, hear the strings on some of these songs. And just all of these are a bop. Like I said, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. I love the guitar and kind of the drum beat of "I'm Holding On to Love." "Love Gets Me Every Time" is kind of like that more standard one. "Don't Be Stupid, You Know I Love You" has a great like little like fiddle string section that kind of like matches the energy of a guitar. The title track as well has a great like slow down kind of beat. "You're Still the One" is actually one of the only songs that I know on piano. It's just a very pretty sort of country ballad. There's some really good covers out there of it as well. "Honey, I'm Home" just gets you amped up again from that string section. Do 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 do. Then you have "That Don't Impress Me Much." The QMJHL hockey team here, the PEI, they were formerly called the PEI Rocket, but now they're called the Charlottetown Islanders. When the opposing team scores on them, they play the bit 4-second chorus. "Okay, so you're Brad Pitt. That don't impress me much." I also did bring on this album in particular because of Cameron Holtzman, and he has a very hot take on, I believe it's "That Don't Impress Me Much." He hates that song. A little spoiler there.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, like "You Rock This Country" is another one. "You've Got Away" is a great closer. She has a really nice strain on her voice and on that one. Yeah. Oh, also, I got to share this. From this moment on, me and one of my best friends, this was our pre-party like hype song. We would play this in the car on the drive into town, and it would get us so pumped, and it does not make sense. Also, Brian White as the featured male artist on this has like really no other credits. So like the fact that like this is his peak is kind of surprising.
I'm going to start us off with this one. Y'all ever wondered what a Poison country album would sound like?
Oh no! This is the one that everyone was alluding to that is bad.
Y'all ever wonder, like, I feel like I want to pull back this cover and be like, who's behind this country album? David Lee Roth. It is produced like an 80s hair metal album. It really is. And like Mutt Lange is the producer of this album, so there's a reason it sounds like that. But there's a reason that like white women really loved this album when it came out, because it reminded them when they were in fishnet stockings on the Sunset Strip, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it hit me halfway through, and I'm like, oh my God, this is produced as if it was a Whitesnake album. So there are really good things about it. I do like this album. Oh, has anyone heard this album before?
Yes. I have a wife who loves this album. She
I
was very excited for it when I told her this album was up to talk about. She got real excited.
She's smart. She's a Giants fan, so she's good people.
She's people.
So, like, when we got into the second song, I'm Holding On to Love to Save My Life, I didn't realize that I knew that song. It started playing, and immediately was like, oh my God, I know this song. Because my parents had the album, and they would play it. So a lot of this kind of came flashing back to me. You're right. I do like a lot of the fiddles on this. I think they sound really good. I think Shania Twain is a very talented vocalist. But if people are gonna call out Logic for being corny, oh baby, some of the corniness on this album, especially on songs like if you wanna touch her, ask. That little pause there, trying to be cute and coy, trying to make it sound like something else. No. Don't you play with me. I know what you're doing here, and I don't appreciate it. And then, I'm sorry, can you, Jeff, can you not imagine, what's the name of the Skid Row singer? Sebastian
Bach.
Sebastian Bach. Could you not imagine someone like a Sebastian Bach singing From This Moment On as a power ballad? Like, tell me that.
I'm getting like the mental image. I could see more David Coverdale from Whitesnake, like you just
said. David Coverdale. Or
I can see more Coverdale than I can see Sebastian Bach.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're hair metal power ballads. I don't know.
I'll actually go off better. Lead singer for Foreigner. I keep forgetting his name.
Oh, Steve Perry? Oh, no, not Steve Perry. No. That's Journey. Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about. But yes.
Come on, Google.
Just going straight from I've been waiting for a girl like you into that song. Like, come on.
Charlie Hanson.
That's it.
Yeah. So there is some really great stuff on here though. Particularly when and whatever you do don't. Like that 1-2 punch was like really good. They were like the highlights of the album for me until we get to what my favorite song is. You're Still the One is the most popular song from this album, and there is a good reason for that because it is a really good song. Even though I would say the backing vocals blending into the synth, I want to say it did sound a little weird. But yeah, there's a lot of great moments on this album. I love the playfulness of that Don't Impress Me Much. I really like that. And I'll tell you what, this is one of Ray Raddick's, our friend Ray Raddick's favorites. She loves Shania Twain. She loves this album. I let her know that we were talking about it the moment you dropped it into the group chat. So you have another fan.
Hey.
All right, next.
I feel bad. Listen, full disclosure, before we started recording, I was telling the guys, I said I had some time set aside to listen to music this week, and I kind of lost that time. So I didn't get to sit down and fully listen to everything. I kind of had to skim some things. Most I did it for the sake of time. With this album, I did it for my mental health, because if I had to sit through this entire album, it probably wouldn't have gone so well. I mean, let's be honest, it's 90s pop country, so of course it's going to be terrible. I was going through this, and I think corny is a great word, Bar. I think just the lyrics, the music. Again, it's very much of its time and of its era in the genre. It's not doing anything different than anything else was happening then. I think just the fakeness of it, she's Canadian and she's cosplaying country, and it is very.
Give me 1 second. I am going to stand up. There are some good Canadian country music artists out there. I will stand by that. Like High Valley is like a great one. So don't you dare.
Maybe we can bring those albums another time. But I just hate that it's that manufactured country sound where we were literally because I was again. I didn't have time to listen to everything. Bar introduced me to Spotify snippets where you gotta just go and they play a clip. They play like 30 seconds every song. So I was going through before we got in there and just going over everything. And there were 2 songs that played, and one ended and the next one started, and it was the exact same sound. I was like, the image changed, and I'm like, this is the exact same song, like to the beat. It was the same song, and I'm like, just like the fiddles and everything. Just again, don't take it personal, Brooklyn. I'm sorry. I know you look sad. This is some of in general, not this album. This genre of music is just maybe my least favorite of all time. So it was not a good pick for me personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, like I said, just that corporate manufactured country sound that I really don't like. So yeah, wasn't a huge fan.
I'm gonna save you, Brooklyn. This shit was a bop.
Yeah, I got Rhye on country.
Fucking back because I don't know what White Snake sounds like. I don't really know what Poison sounds like.
Here I go again on my own.
Okay, I know that song. And I don't listen to country. So I heard, man, I Feel Like a Woman. It's like, I love this song. I know this song. And then just one after the other, after the album, was like, this shit is dope as hell. I love this fucking album. From back to back to back to back. I don't care if you think it, you might hear it more than I do because I don't listen to it as much. Shania Twain is a queen in the Black community. Point blank fucking period. She is put on a pedestal. Love this album. I love the beats. I actually did not think it was corny. I specifically remember hearing If You Want to Touch Her Ass, and was like, that's actually that's a different way to put that shit. Being very, very serious. Black Eyes, Blue Tears was a song I was like, oh shit, this is a really, really good fucking song. Like, period. What she's talking about. It's like, is she really? Yeah, she is. Okay, this is a great song. And then every time I like heard the songs of my 90s that wasn't hip hop, that I was like, this is a great, great song. I was like, yep, I know that one too. Yep, I know that one too. Yep, I know that one too. And the ones I didn't know in between, I was just in my car, just like, hell yeah, let's go. This is beautiful. This is every song on here is a bop. And if your song is a bop, I'm loving it. Good shit, Brooklyn.
Yeah, I don't think M. Night Shyamalan could have come up with a twist like this one.
I was not expecting that at all.
All right, Jeff, you want to
round it out?
Yeah. How badly do you want to bring the tone down? Huh?
Not as bad as you think, man. 97 was a good year, wasn't it? We all were there. Come on, that was a great time. But y'all don't see my wife right now. She currently has like a glare fixed on me right now. Like, you better talk more about this album right now because she loves this album with a passion. So, if you want to see white girls get loose, 7 Notes will change everything. You will see high heels thrown across the room. You will see them out and everything like that. And it's a fun song. I would say, Man, I Feel Like a Woman is definitely a fun song. That don't impress me much. I would say that's just a fun song to play, like in general. Like, I would say good guitar riff. I would say, and premium cowbell in that song as well. From This Moment On, that was played at my wedding. I would say one of the prelude songs for my wedding, and I sang it at weddings, so it's kind of like one I'm very, very familiar with. But this is where I kind of like this era of Shania Twain is where she's like, she still wants to be a country artist, but she's now wanting to be more of a pop artist more than anything, and she's trying to blend that country pop thing. And it was kind of like what Faith Hill was doing too. It works, and then it doesn't work too. When she sticks with the country stuff, it sounds really good. Like Holding On to Love works really good. Love Gets Me Every Time was really nice. If You Want to Touch Her Ass, it's cheeky, I guess, but whatever. But then when you want to get to like, haha, I see what I did there. But then when you get to like the pop centric stuff, like the title track, "Come On Over," or what was the one I'm thinking of? "I Won't Leave You Lonely," or "You've Got a Way." Like when she's trying to be more pop centric, she loses it. And that's where it's like, I think it's like you can hear the overproduction, you can hear it just being overly bombastic, and you're trying to reach like a different audience. It's like, stick to the meat and potatoes of what made you successful with those first 2 albums. Stick with the country, stick with the stuff that made you good. You can branch off and be more radio friendly with some of the pop stuff, but in the same sense too, it's like you're branching a little too far away from it now. But overall, it was 97. Shania Twain was the biggest name in pop, well, just say pop in general at that point, and proved it with some of these great hits that still stand today. So ultimately, I think my wife can let me sleep in bed tonight because I didn't hate this album, but I have my reservations.
I will say, country music, like the Nashville in general, like the record labels in Nashville, have been chasing after this album ever since it came out. This and Breathe by Faith Hill. Those 2 albums, country music, like Music Row, have been dying to capture the popularity of those 2 albums so much, and you can hear it in modern country radio, especially when it comes to women in modern country radio.
Yep.
And they will never capture it. Stop trying to recapture something from 1997. Okay, country music radio right now?
Women country in the 90s was a whole different time, because you had like Shania Twain, you had Faith Hill, Jody Messina, Leanne Rimes, Dan Womack. You had a lot of like heavy hitters. They didn't transition to the 2000s well, because they had to change their sound, and that's where everything changed. I was like, Tyler Shadows was a really good video on Faith Hill's album "Cry." It explains everything perfectly, I think.
Absolutely.
Shania Twain in the 2000s. Hey, need to make a song. We should do a duet. Who should we do it with? Oh, hey, Mark McGrath, are you free to join me on a song?
All right, so real quick, you mentioned my girl Jody Messina. Love that girl. So I'm going to get into Cam's opinion. Thoughts going into this album. I knew 2 songs and had wildly different opinions about them. Man, I Feel Like a Woman is an absolute classic. And it really gives you hope going into the album that it can keep up that quality. But in the back of my mind, the thought lingered that eventually I would reach one of my least favorite songs of all time. I Am Holding On to Love is pretty decent, and from there we reached a sea of mostly mediocre songs. Coming Over was super annoying, which was really uninteresting. Totally disagree there. And If You Want to Touch or Ask just felt strange. But eventually we got to That Don't Impress Me Much. A terrible excuse for a song I've hated for years. Just terrible vocals, production, and every time she says, okay, I want to bash my head into a wall. Please just listen to the Haim cover instead. The album gets a little better from there, but it isn't particularly good by any means, with Rock This Country in particular also sticking out as pretty bad. Lots of these songs just had me wishing I was listening to better music. As a Canadian, I feel bad this is one of the albums that's been chosen to represent us on this show. So, God. I disagree.
That was amazing.
As someone who's listened to the Haim version of That Don't Impress Me Much, I'll say this much. It don't impress me much. Someone had to do that joke. It was sitting right there. You can't just leave that joke in the cold and the rain like that. But let's go into scores, favorite and least favorite. Brooklyn, this is your baby, so let us know what you're thinking.
It's a damn near perfect album. I'm gonna give it a 10. I've listened to it at least once a year, sometimes twice. Like definitely throw it on in the summer all the time. My favorite song, by a country mile, pun intended. I listened to this album, I think 2.5, 3 times before the show. I listened to Whatever You Do, Don't probably like 6 or 7 times. I love the opening strings to that. I love the chorus and how it just kind of lets everything loose. How the slide guitar fits in with it. Don't even think about it. Don't even get me started. I love the lyricism and that and whatnot. And then it kind of fades out, and you get this like really nice, like low sort of guitar solo matched with the strings. And if kind of it's like the highlight of the entire album, where you have like the guitar in this is like pretty low, even though it's being compared to like a hair metal album. Like they don't have those like super shreddy kind of solos and whatnot.
Oh, they just replace it with fiddles.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. My least favorite song would be Love Gets Me Every Time. And this is where I completely understand like the corny, cheeky argument of like, and especially get like the twang and like the doll darn gone and got it. Like that seemed unnecessary, I guess. I like the arrangement of it, but like that, like the delivery of that is like, I understand why people might be like, okay, it's a little hammy.
Let's go to Jeff next.
All right, so grade for this one, I'm gonna give it a 7. I think I would say like I was teetering back and forth between going with like a 6.75 or a 7, but I'm gonna go on the heavier side. I'm gonna go with a 7. I like when she sticks with the country. When she's doing that, she sounds a lot better. However, it's when she does the pop side of things that I just did not really care for, and I don't think it holds up near as well. Best track, and when I told my wife this before we got on here, she gave me a very happy nod of approval. It's Honey, I'm Home. I think that's probably the best track on this album, because like when you do that halftime opening, and then it's very like anthemic in a way, kind of like a Whitesnake even, But I was like, but the chorus, go ahead.
No, it actually reminds me a lot of like Def Leppard, that arena rock. Like
I could definitely go with that. Yeah. I think it's one of the more underrated singles that came off of this album. I mean, everybody's gonna look at like, man, I feel like a woman, and that don't impress me much. But I think Honey, I'm Home is super underrated, and it's definitely a good blend of where she came from and what she was trying to adopt into her new style. So I think that was like the perfect blend. Worst on this one is going to be the title track, Come On Over. I thought it was just really bland, and it was just too kind of melodramatic in a way, and just didn't grab me, and it was very overproduced pop. So yeah, didn't care for that one.
Kirk, let's go to you.
Okay. I think I hurt Brooklyn's feelings a little bit while I was talking about this. So I'm going to be generous with my score, and I'm going to give it a 3.
Oh, no.
Best
Kirk,
song, I have to pick one.
Kirk, let me tell you real quick. Holtzman gave the exact same score.
Oh my God.
I have to pick a favorite song.
Yes, you do, Kirk.
I guess I'll go with Come On Over, just because it's like a bland pop song, which is better. Not Coming On. I'm sorry. From this moment on, because it's a bland ballad that is just whatever. Speaking of weddings, my sister walked down the aisle to this song at her wedding. She's divorced now. The song is probably why. As far as least favorite, probably Rock This Country, mostly because it's called Rock This Country, and you can just get right the hell there with this pandering bullshit. And then also I think I can't even tell you some of the part. I think it was Whatever You Do, Don't, or was it When? I don't know. One of the ones that just sounds like the most generic country song you've ever heard, which you may have trouble picking out from this album, but that was my least favorite.
Okay, let me just do Holtzman's real quick. 3 out of 10. Best track, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Worst track, can you fucking guess?
No, I can't.
It didn't impress him much. Let's just say that. Rhye.
9 vibes. It just is.
Okay.
My favorite track, Man, I Feel Like a Woman, is a classic for a reason. And I'm going to go with Kirk on this one. It was actually kind of hard to pick. I was like, what is going to be my least favorite track? I don't know. Rock This Country. That goes into the realm of what I think y'all are talking about, where it's like anthem, yay, go, pop. That one's fine.
No, it pains me to put this.
Hold on, I'm not finished. I haven't given
Oh
my
no,
score
you're
yet.
not. Sorry, right.
No.
There's hope. There's hope.
There's hope.
There's hope.
Get above mediocre.
So what I'll do is I'll give you my least favorite songs first. My favorite song is actually the closing track. You Got Away.
Yeah.
There was something really nice about that one. It seemed like it comes from a genuine place, simplistic, but like really beautiful to listen to. But shout out to When and Whatever You Do Don't, because I actually really liked those two. So fuck y'all. My least favorite, it's Rock This Country. Rock This Country is not great. I will give Rock This Country one thing. When they go rock, it has a guitar, like an electric guitar, and when it says "This Country," it effortlessly transitions to a fiddle. I thought that was a really cool touch. So I'll give you that. You got one thing in there, Rock This Country. Otherwise, you can go, I don't know, get trampled in a line dance. 6.7 out of 10. It's good. It's a good album. I think that there's just too many
that's
overdone and boring moments.
You look so relieved
Okay.
right now.
It's not great, but it's better. 6.45.
That's a passing grade. That's a D.
You guys brought it up like nearly a whole letter grade, basically.
Yeah, you really did. So Brooklyn, you're welcome. All right. So we're going to transition into my album, Woman by Rhye. So I found this album. Well, I had heard about this album before. One of my favorite critics put one of the songs from this in their top 50 songs of the year. And that one being the opening track, Open. And I really dug the at ease, sensual feel of this song, like those soft horns that kind of just like that like have this really beautiful softness to it, and the way it plays into the strings as well. It's very cottage core. This is the kind of album that I would put on if I was in like the middle of a snowy cabin in Maine with like my, if I had a girlfriend or a wife, I would have them by my side as this album was playing. I'm single, ladies. And so I didn't really actually listen to the full album until maybe a year ago because I rediscovered that one song. And I gotta say, he's got a really beautiful voice, which I thought for sure was not a male voice when I first heard it. But then, like, the one thing that stuck in my mind was, well, two things. One, I really love this album. I dig this. It's short. It fits in that perfect time span of like 30 to 50 minutes, which I think is like the sweet spot for an album. But I also went, man, he really loves Sade, doesn't he? Like, he really loves Sade. And guess what? I do too. So that's not a bad thing in my books. I love some of the grooves on this album. Particularly with songs like Last Dance and Hunger. Like the rhythm in those songs is actually like really cool and interesting. I love the some like the really soft and sensual songs. Verse is actually also like just an amazing vocal performance. But this is just an album that there's like a lot of just comfort behind it, but also just like a tightness which just keeps you coming back to it. It's one of my, I don't know if I would call it one of my favorite albums of the decade, but it's one of the ones that I've listened to a lot since diving deeper into it. So I want to know what everyone else's thoughts on this album are.
Okay.
Has anybody listened to this album before?
Thank you, Brooklyn.
No.
What? No. No one's heard of Rhye before?
I'll go first because I don't have a ton to say on this. This is a I like the sound of it. I think the vocals are very strong. It's not an album that I would sit down and like listen to, like just choose like track for track listen to. I think it's a great album. I think it's very atmospheric. I think it's great, like put on at a party and just have on. And that's not saying anything like negative about it. I don't think it sounded bad. I just think that's the kind of sound it is. I think it's just like like it's more like something you experience, but not like just focus completely on it. It doesn't feel like it's meant to be that. Like it feels like it's more kind of like disconnected, disjointed. Maybe that was just what I was hearing. But I thought it sounded fantastic. But there wasn't. This is going to sound more negative than I mean it, but there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone. Like there wasn't much beyond just the sound of it, which, like I said, I'll reiterate was great. But I just didn't get much more than that from it.
It's not very bombastic in any moments.
Yeah, and I did the Sade thing that I was just waiting for. This is no ordinary. I was waiting for that to kick in at any point.
Yeah, so there is a person in this household who absolutely despises Sade.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that.
Luckily, it's not me. Sade is a national treasure. This album is a perplexing one for me. It is definitely weird because one, I swore as a woman, told me it wasn't, but I got past that. Everything about it is stuff I really, really enjoy. Sounds like Sade, has a soulful voice. The beats and the music, the music's and the melodies is a combination of soul with a little bit of, I don't know how to like describe it, but like
indie pop.
But not even indie pop, indie R&B. It kind of reminds me a lot of a not as polished version of Childish Gambino's "Awaken My Love."
Yeah,
kind of upbeat, kind of soulful, kind of jazzy, kind of bluesy. Putting that all together and making it a little bit more upbeat than maybe a full blown jazzy Sade album, right? And I was like, all right, cool. Like I remember the song you picked, and I was like, I should like this album. And then somehow Rye's musical or verbal melody never fit the vibe. The vibe is R&B. The vibe is blues, but he just didn't seem to be able to hit the right spots. It sounded like he was singing alternative songs on an R&B blues jazz album. And while in general, I'm like, I really love your voice. I really love the music. I really love the tone. But the way you're singing, it's like you don't know how to sing to these songs. You don't know the tempo. You don't know the right hits to beat, the beats to hit. You don't know where to give more emphasis or where to slow it down. It was really, really weird. And the songs that I loved is when he's able to hit that pocket. But a good amount of the songs, he just kept getting in and out of the pocket. And I was like, oh, this is good, but something doesn't fit. And that's why it was perplexing to me. I enjoyed it, but listening to it, it kind of made it feel like I don't know song from song. I couldn't pick a song out, honestly, from one another. So again, solid. I liked it, but it just a bit perplexing when I was listening to it.
So would you say that it kind of sounds like a debut album from somebody who is still kind of figuring it out?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, I guess I'll chime in then. I'm going to go with basically the same sentiments. This was one I really wanted to like this album because I when I was like doing my notes, I do it like track by track. every single track kind of had the same thing. The composition musically is incredible. I would say there's a lot like good stuff here. Like The Fall has this really nice horn accent in it. Last Dance has a nice, good, funky beat to it, and it's cool because it's like certain songs like have like borrowed elements from like different vibes. Like 3 Days has this like disco-y kind of vibe, and One of Those Summer Days kind of gave me like a Radiohead-ish kind of sound. I even got like kind of like a yacht rock sound in a way. I even said Hunger. I'm like, this is the smooth operator. Like Hunger, I said, I'm like, this is like the smooth operator of the album right
Yeah, it is.
But it's like, what frustrated me the most was it's like you have such a beautiful musical arrangement, and while your singing is good, it's a nice tender voice, and you can tell there's something here, but the lyrics are really like first draft, need another pass through to kind of like make this feel like whatever message you're trying to say needs to be hit home a little bit more. And it's like they don't fit the composition, the lyrics don't work with this, and it's like I ultimately just be like, after like the first song or two, I'm like, this is gonna get better. Like this is like they're gonna find it, right? And it's like by the final track, I'm like they didn't find it, and it was more frustrating than anything. And I was like, it's like you could have had something here, but you just didn't hit it. And I more or less came out here frustrated more than anything. I was like, because I really wanted to like this album from a musical standpoint.
So I listened to this the first time, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. I liked Open. I thought I was going for a cool sound, and I thought the closer was kind of weird. Then I listened to it the second time, and it's one of the only times that it went down on second listen. This album is just fine. I really like the first three songs, Open, The Fall, Last Dance. Great. Open is the perfect song to drive home at night to. It has that perfect like synth poppy, all pop sort of vibes. The Fall is a continuation of that, and then Last Dance is, like Jeff was saying, it's kind of leaning into disco, and I really like that. But then you get Verse, Shed Some Blood, and 3 Days, and that's like, to use a baseball reference because we don't talk about football anymore, it's Javier Baez swinging on like a slider that's in the other batter's box. Bad. 3 Days starts with a harp and then goes into like this really heavy synth, and I don't get the mashup. It's like, if you take away the harp, I think that song's a lot better. I also think like the arrangement of it could be like, the arrangement of the tracks could be different. Like if you put Hunger right after Last Dance, I think when they go into like the sound that kind of makes it their own is a little more palatable, but it's just like the middle of this is bad. It starts to come around. One of Those Summer Days is like the one. It's like, all right, I'm restoring my faith. And then like the second time around, getting to Mother, it's like, okay, I dig this sound. Like of the stuff that's kind of different, I really dig this sound. But there's some choices in here that don't really make sense. Like there's no need for steel drums in Verse. There's one other thing.
So wrong about that.
But I'll save that. But there's one other one that's like really bad, but I'll save it for my least favorite.
Okay. Well, thank God for Holtzman, because he says, I love the vibes on this one. Chill and easy indie pop is a genre I will never say no to. This album isn't lo-fi chill beats to study to. It's lo-fi chill beats to make love to. Open starts this album off on a great
I don't
note.
like that.
If I put this on as a slow jam, I'd be kicked out of the bed easily.
Oh, I'm not going to get too inappropriate, but I think I would be having a great night.
A family show.
A family show. Open starts this album off on a great note, and the background vocals on the Stay Open section were lovely. I didn't love The Fall, couldn't really put my finger on why. Last Dance had a really great beat to it, and I love the horns at play in the track. The bass line in Shed Some Blood is such a great bit of funk to have in the background of the song. The lyrics of 3 Days were really interesting, and I really like the imagery that they conjured. Major Minor Love really doubles down on my theory of this is an album to make love to. It just really has that vibe. Hunger is my favorite track.
Holtzman, come on. Jeez.
Hunger is my favorite track. Just great vibes, great production, and an easy listen. Woman was kind of a weird place to end, and I can't say I vibed with it. It was well produced, but not really what I was hoping to close out the album. Overall, a really chill album that was easy to listen to. No high highs, but no real lows either. Damn, Holtzman, why you got to make this so dirty? All right, okay. Let's wrap this up. Fuck y'all. This is an 8.87 for me. I really love just how like smooth and I don't want to call it like DIY, but like you can tell that this was like a passion project from somebody who didn't really have a lot of background in the music industry. My favorite song is Open. I still think that's the best song on the album, even though I will give a special mention to Last Dance. The one song that never seems to stick with me is Major Minor Love. And for that one, just never really seems to click into gear for me. I see Brooklyn making that face, though, so let's go to Brooklyn next.
I'll save my score for last. Funny you say that Major Minor Love is your least favorite, because that is my favorite. Like when we were starting to come around to the second half, and whenever I listened to it the first time, this was the song that made me pull out my phone. It's like, all right, this is the song that I need, that I like, that grabbed my attention. I really like the bass line in it. I think the production in it is great, and it matches his vocal qualities. My least favorite is Shed Some Blood. I hate the woodblock in this. It is piercing. It genuinely hurts my ear to play this in my headphones. There are some strings that come in near the end that try to like save the song, but it's not doing enough. And it's a shame, because like whenever Holtzman is talking about like the bass line in it, it's like I could see that, but it's like you take that woodblock out and we have a somewhat palatable song. My score, I'm sorry, Andrew, you have incredible music taste. You have shown me some really good songs. This is a 5.5.
Okay, it's not below 5. Okay. No, that's fine. If you said something like 4, I would have been throwing fists. Let's go to Rhye next.
Sorry, Brooklyn. I just replayed Chet's Blood. That's a pretty damn good song. Not my favorite, but pretty damn good song. I am giving this a 7.2. Again, even though it was like, man, what's not working here? It works really well enough that I do really enjoy how solid this album is. I'm gonna go back to what I had mentioned. My favorite song is the one I think he hits the pocket the best, and that's with the funk groove and Last Dance. And the one where I was really like, what is happening here? Least favorite is 3 Days.
Holtzman gave it a 7 out of 10. Holtzman's favorite track was Hunger, and his least favorite track was The Fall. Let's go to Kirk.
I'll give it a 6. Didn't love it, but I think it's, like I said, I thought the sound was solid. My favorite track was Last Dance, just because of everything I described. I think this did that the best. Basically utilized their skill set the best. And the one I think I liked the least, I think it was 3 Days was my least favorite, again, because I think it just kind of was the worst of everything that I described, and just kind of just was the least interesting to listen to.
All right, Jeff, close it out.
All right, Brooklyn, I'll give you the score so you can do your tally. I'm going to give this a 5.75. Okay. Again, I loved the compositions of the songs. I thought everything worked well in there. So some of the lyrics were better. I think the best lyrics of the album were on Major Minor Love. I thought that had the strongest lyrics, but the best song I think was Hunger, because side-eye vibes. I love Smooth Operator. This is the Smooth Operator of the album. Worst, Woman. Like I was like it's such a bizarre closer of there, and the lyrics are just so. Yeah, the lyrics are. It's just woman, people. I was gonna say, you can only go so far by saying the same exact thing over and over again without it being very interesting. So, again, Bar, you've given some good stuff. This was the one I think it's like, yeah, this album quacked the minute you threw it out here.
I kind of figured that this would be one that was a little bit of a risk to throw out here, but it's one that I genuinely have fallen in love with, so I kind of wanted to put it out there, give more attention to it. All right, Jeff, you're next. Tell us about Mission Bell.
All right, so Amos Lee. So this was an artist I came across when I was talking with a buddy of mine in college. We were talking about an artist named Rhye LaMontagne. Which for those who are not familiar with him, I was looking at one of his albums for this episode, but I decided to go with this one. He might be on in the future episode. Stay tuned, people. But my buddy told me about Amos Lee kind of like having like Rhye LaMontagne vibes, and he told me listen to the Mission Bell. And when I listened to this album, it was during a period in college where it's just like I was super stressed out and everything was just kind of like weighing heavy, and it's like I need to kind of relax. And this was kind of like the perfect situation, having the perfect antidote at that point, because everything here just made me feel relaxed and at ease and mellow. And it's like Amos's voice is like really fine with like bourbon whiskey. It is just so smooth. He has such an incredible range of hitting some really nice falsettos to hitting some of those really nice like baritone style voices. And I think this was one of the albums that really kind of made me want to explore more folky style singers, because I've always been kind of like intrigued by players like guys like Cat Stevens, Jackson Browne, and guys like that. So he kind of fits that mold of those early like songwriter musicians. And it's very evident on this album, especially because he does a lot of wordplay and he can paint a really interesting picture. When you start off with an album, like when you start off with El Camino, it really kind of just sets the tone, of kind of like where you want to go and kind of like what the future could look like. And it's kind of like very open-ended. And I love that. Windows Are Rolled Down, really nice, like showing what he can do in terms of adding more layers to the sound rather than it just being just a simple folky style sound. Violin, I've talked on the set list episode with Brooklyn about this song. This is one of my favorite songs to perform live in front of people. It's just one of those songs that lyrically is just beautiful, and it's like one of those like, man, I wish I wrote this song. And then you get like a lot of really good stuff. Stay With Me is a really strong song. Out of the Cold, I think, is super underrated. Jesus is like a really like fun, like throwback, on the nose gospel-y kind of song, but it's not that on the nose to the point where it's preachy, but it works really well. Learned a Lot, I think, is also really super underrated. And then Behind Me Now, I think, is like kind of like one of the better, not counting the El Camino reprise is whatever we would want to call it. But Behind Me Now, I think, is like kind of like one of the best ways to close out this album and just kind of make what is just a really just relaxing and soothing experience, and just puts the perfect period on the end of this album. So this was one I always I had in the back of my mind. I was like, I really want to know what people think about this, because it's like, you're either going to love the voice or you're going to hate the voice. But it's like, I always tell people, give it a minute, and then I think you'll enjoy it. So I'm curious what people think.
I'm actually going to start with Holtzman's thoughts on this one.
Okay, I'm a little nervous on this one.
Thoughts. I was shocked by how much I liked this. The opening track really pleasantly surprised me. I love the soft rock, country, bluesy vibes of it, and Lee's vocals are really good. Windows Are Rolled Down is another really great song, just a lovely song, and I love the way it builds, especially towards the end. Violin kind of disappointed me, maybe just because I was really hoping to hear more violin in the song, but it was still good. Flower got a little too into the country fields for me, but again, the vocals are really great. The album dipped a bit in the middle for me, with Stay With Me and Out of the Cold both feeling just a tad uninteresting and losing the energy that made me like the earlier tracks. once we get to learn a lot, I was so back on board. I'm an absolute sucker for layered vocals, and the chorus on this one, having that as its main feature, earned it a lot of points. Cup of Sorrow had big Christian country vibes, even more than the song Jesus, but it was still pretty solid. Clear Blue Eyes was mixed, wasn't a huge fan of Lucinda Williams' part. The El Camino reprise, whatever, was such a great way to end the album. I quite enjoyed the Willie Nelson feature. Overall, I was really pleasantly surprised by this one. Great vocals, some great instrumentation with the guitar, and just a lot of pleasant songs to listen to. I'll probably look more into more of Lee's stuff.
I'm actually shocked.
I was too, because he had mentioned that there was one album that he wasn't really digging, and I thought for sure it would be this one.
I was thinking it too, like when it was dropped in the chat, like there was one album that was like kind of like, ooh, I'm like, it's gonna be me, it's gonna be the curveball.
I just looked it up. It is Reprise. My non-music knowledge, it was bothering me.
Don't worry about it.
It's okay. Sometimes we just put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
There it is.
It's a potato-tomato thing still. I was a little surprised at my first listen to the album, mostly because, like you, I love. I can never pronounce his name right. Rhye LaMontagne.
I call him LaMontagne. Joe Montaigne.
Yeah. I love that man. His blend of like country, blues, and gospel is so good. And for some reason, I just wasn't connecting to this one as much as I would have liked to. I had enough time to listen through it a second time, and I'm glad I did, because it did grow on me. There were things that I thought were, first of all, he's a great vocalist. And he is a fantastic lyricist. You brought up El Camino's lyrics, and there are some imagery in that song in particular that are really great. The vibe of Jesus was not what I was expecting coming in halfway into the album, because it's very much a turn from how a lot of this album sounds. And I really dug that. It just kind of took me off guard. There are moments after Hello Again, though, where everything kind of started to blend together and started to kind of sound like the same song. Because they all had that kind of, oh brother, where art thou, bluegrassy kind of blend. And then we got to El Camino Reprise. Willie Nelson's just so perfect on this. His voice is so perfect on this song. And that harmonica, look,
I know how much you love a good harmonica.
A good harmonica can absolutely take a song to new heights. A bad harmonica can absolutely bring it to new depths, though. Just look at 1/3 of Blues Traveler's discography. No disrespect, I love you guys. You've got some fantastic songs. But the harmonica on the Reprise is just, it adds so much color and texture and just like vivid imagery to that song. So it falls into a very similar category as The Incredible True Story, where I highly respect the album. Aside from maybe a few songs, I don't know if I would go back to it.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, Andrew, because I thought that you would have dug this more, given how much the genre is kind of up your alley. I really dug this. That like you can hear the influences that he is inspired by, and the ones that kind of came afterwards. You guys are already mentioning Blues Traveler, Cat Stevens. Hear a lot of Chris Stapleton. I think it's Hello Again in particular. Leon Edwards, I imagine, loves the hell out of that song because a lot of his sound, I feel it kind of comes from there. Jesus actually reminds me a lot of Bill Withers. In particular, like The Same Love That Made Me Laugh, Why You Want to Make Me Cry. There's just a good mix, like in El Camino in particular. Really like the horns. Windows Are Rolled Down has this really good drive. Flower actually reminded me of like 70s kind of like yacht rock, like that kind of like that aggressive bass line that kind of keeps the tempo going. Out of the Cold is probably my favorite song lyrically. Song about PTSD and about soldiers coming back from war, and just kind of like how they handle that. You get the horns again in Hello Again. The harmony in Learned a Lot was good. We were already talking about it, but like Willie Nelson, anytime you're able to kind of add him into an album, is great. But my favorite line in the whole song or whole album is Clear Blue Eyes, follow a blind ambition like a promise of unknown coasts. I just think there's a lot to look into in that line.
This song sounds like The Dirt, and that is an amazing thing. Like, this is soul and grit and just like getting on a porch with BB King and just singing the shit out of some blues. I really dug this album. I listened to it in the gym and like it stood out a lot. It's like I'm really paying attention while I'm lifting these weights. I'm not gonna say too much about it. I will say because I know there was a block that I really enjoyed, so I had to run it back again. Jesus to Hello Again to Learned a Lot is damn strong. It's really strong. 3 different vibes. I enjoyed the shit out of this. I don't got much more to say than that. But that boy can sing. I definitely looked up his parentage, try to figure out what was going on, and he was just as confused. He doesn't know, but I see the hair. It's there, boy. I can see it. You got some soul in there somewhere.
Rhye, have you ever heard Ray Lamont talk before?
No, not my name.
Oh, you gotta look into him then.
Listen to the album Trouble. It is unbelievably good.
Oh, the title track alone is just one of the greatest songs ever made.
That and Jolene. Oof.
Yeah. All right, Kirk.
Yeah. This kind surprisingly gave me a lot of the same feelings as Hadestown did, where it's a sound that transports you to a different place. It just feels like 1930s Dust Bowl, like folksy kind of music where, you're just like Rhye said, just the grit and the grime of that on it. And just a light, you could feel the life lived coming out of the music here. I really enjoyed it. I listened to this one of the albums I got to listen to pretty much the whole way through. And I just kind of like Jeff was saying, like, I kind of got lost in it. It's going to be hard for me to like talk about my favorite songs because, again, positive. It all kind of started to blend together because it wasn't just about a song. It was the vibe and the feel and the sound overall. I really got into it. I really had a good time. Just kind of, just experiencing this music. So yeah, I've never heard of Amos Lee before. I want to listen to this album again because I think if I take more time and can really sit down and focus on it, I think I'll get a lot more out of it. Does he have a lot of albums though? Is he pretty prolific, Jeff?
Yeah, he's got quite a few albums now.
Okay.
I think I would say one album I will always recommend to people is he did a live album with the Colorado Symphony Orchestra, and he takes a lot of the songs like from here and like from other albums he's done and layers them worlds more, and it's kind of like it's incredible. I say it's a little short of an album, but definitely worth the listen.
Is this one here? Is this like where's this at in his career?
This was probably pretty early on. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick.
While you're looking that up, he's one of those names that I constantly hear from like some of my favorite country artists as a big influence for them.
This was like about his like third album, I'd say. And like he had like he made his debut in 2005, and then had another one in 2006, and then kind of like third, fourth album, something like that.
I got you. And it's pretty cool because he can convey like his voice. He has a very modern sounding voice, but the sound overall is very much a throwback. And I don't think that's necessarily easy to do.
All right. So, Jeff, hit us up with your score, your favorite and your least favorite song from this track.
I gotta say, like this for me is just like this was like an album that came out at the perfect time for me, and it still just holds up, and I come back to it a lot. So this gets an easy 9 out of 10 from me. I like the overall mellowness of it. It's something that can just calm your nerves and just make you just feel at ease. Favorite song, I would say, I know it might not be everybody else's favorite, but I always loved Violin. I would say, like, again, it's one of my favorite songs to play live. It's one of those songs that it's like lyrically, it kind of speaks to you in a way where it's like, you know, whatever you're going through, you'll feel fine at the end, you know, and it spoke to me at the right time. Least favorite song, I would probably say, is Cup of Sorrow. Like that was just kind of like the one like song, like for me, I was just, it's like, you can be gospel-y, but I think this one was just a little, it wasn't my favorite for me, and it just didn't work as well.
Okay. Let's go to Amaru.
Jeff, I'm not sure how you brought an album and didn't score it the highest, because this is a 9.2 for me.
Nice.
I want to be respectful.
This was a really just pretty damn amazing album. Musically, tonally, his voice is grown. He's been through some shit. And I'm also with you. My favorite song is Violin. I finished listening to that, and I was like, that was epic as hell. That is just an epic ass song. I'm gonna have to say, unfortunately, the man is a legend. But I'm sorry, my least favorite is the El Camino reprise. I love Willie Nelson as a person. I'm not a fan of his voice. I hear him, like, again, I was in the gym and I was listening to things, and I was listening to El Camino again. I was like, that doesn't sound like, what happened to the voice? That doesn't sound as good. Oh, it's Willie. I get it now. It's Willie. Okay, cool. Not a bad voice, but I'm not the biggest fan of his, of how he sounds, even though man can also not do any wrong in my eyes as well. So
Holtzman gave this score an 8 out of 10. His favorite track being Windows Are Rolled Down, and his least favorite track being Clear Blue Eyes. I agree with his least favorite song. Clear Blue Eyes was mine as well. It's not that it was bad. It's just kind of like, after the string of songs that had come before it, I think it just kind of faded into the background for me. Maybe if it was placed in a different spot on the album, it could be different, but I don't know. My favorite song on the album is El Camino, with Windows Are Rolled Down, very close to it. I was actually kind of split between which version of El Camino I wanted, but I ended up going with the original opening track. And as much as I kind of talked it down a bit, it's still a 7.5 for me. I totally understand the artistry and like what makes it a great album. It's just a personal connection for me. I don't know what it was. Brooklyn.
So yeah, this gets an 8.4 for me. Picking a favorite was kind of tough for this one. Violin's already gotten some love. Let's go with, yeah, I'll stick with Flower. I like the 70s kind of vibe. But there's like it could be a different one depending on, like, even like Behind Me Now was almost my least favorite, but then I kind of found an appreciation for that song. Like that's the song of, like, if you're playing music while you were sleeping and you happen to like wake up in the middle of the night and like that song came on, there'd be such a feeling of like ease. It's like, all right, everything's fine. I can go back to sleep now. It's great. I will agree. No, I was thinking another song. My least favorite though is Cup of Sorrow. And it, as somebody who has played bass for a lot of their life and has played bass in church a lot, it's a thing in bass lines that I hate, and Jeff will totally understand what I mean. You play the root, you play the fifth, you play the next root note, you play the fifth, and you go back to the top, and it's just so boring. When any song kind of does that, it's like that cookie cutter country gospel sort of thing. Just bland.
I'm hearing the metronome in my head right now.
Yeah.
All right, Kirk.
I'm going to give it a 7.5, but with the caveat that I could definitely go up because it's something I will probably come back to. And if I spend more time with it, I think I'm going to appreciate it more. And I think the only reason it's not higher is because everything was like kind of here, which is high. But there's nothing that really, if I had one or two tracks that maybe like really stuck out to me, it would be higher. I get that's, to come because I think, like I said, I only see this going up in my estimation. My favorite track, I think, is Jesus because I just like that gospely sound of it. I think that's the best kind of sound in this little subgenre. And my least favorite probably is Clear Blue Eyes. Because if I had to pick one, I'm not saying it does, but if I had to pick one that felt the most like just like a modern country song, kind of took me out of the experience, it would be that one. But I'm not saying it did that. Just I had to pick a least favorite, so that's what I'll go with.
Okay, so let us go on to our final album. Kirk, why'd you bring Maggot Brain to us?
This is actually a first time listen to for me. I brought it on the recommendation of my son. This is one of his, I think it's like a top 3 album of all time. And I've heard a lot of the music, but I've never sat down and listened to the whole thing. And he's always on my case to do that. So I told him I'd do it for this. So, I like this genre in general. I just love pretty much anything like late 60s, early 70s is right there for me. And this captures so much of that sound. That I really enjoy that. And I just like, I know, like, I'm not going to pretend like I know a much about like Funkadelic or Parliament or anything like that. I know there's a lot to that, a lot of like history, a lot of stories about that I'm not real deep in, but I just love how it sounds. I love the combination of rock and soul and jazz and all these things they bring together. And just how deep and rich all the songs are. There's so many things going on between the vocals and the different instruments being used. And I'm kind of glad here because I can say I like the song, but I can't tell you what it is. So I'm glad I have people here who can explain it to me and tell me what I'm listening to and why I like it. I just know I do. But there's so many different, I don't have my track list up, but there's that one song where it has like those real like dissonant drums with like that real heavy reverb on it. And then there's the one that has like the real twangy sound to it all through. And just so many different things like being tried. And I love that. Me and Jeff had a debate. I don't know if it's here, just on Swivel. We were talking about Jimi Hendrix, and I just love like that. It has that kind of Jimi Hendrix feel where you feel like the music's being created in front of you. There's definitely like skill and artistry to it, and it's technically well done, but it has that spontaneity to it that I really love. So just track to track, so many different unique sounds, different things going on, and like I said, it just a time in history where I just love everything, music, movies. I think this is just like the best that America had to offer in like those things. And I think this is just such a concentration of so much greatness that was going on at the time. So, everybody tell me why I like this.
Yeah,
I'll go first. I'll go first. So from the opening track, I really dug it. I'm gonna go back to something that you said, Kirk, at the first time you were on, whenever you're talking about Tragically Hip, because there was one point where you're like, maybe there's some things that are happening in this album that from a musical standpoint that like, you can't really point out. I got a lot of that in this. There's some really nuanced things, especially in the opening track. Like that, like the guitar work in that in particular, there's a couple of different strum techniques. Jeff, correct me on this if I'm using the wrong terminology, but there's a time where he's using like the volume to strum. I think that's called like knob strumming.
So what you're doing is basically it's what's known as like a kill switch, So like think of Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine or Audioslave. There's like a little button that if you hit that, it's basically killing off either the neck or the bridge part of the guitar. So it's kind of giving like that like stuttery sound like that. And that's kind of like basically like the cheater's method for that is taking the volume knob and just kind of going up and down with it, kind of giving like that little bit of like a weird strumming technique. So it's kind of like a strum, but it's more or less like volume technique.
Yeah, so there's like that. There's some cool shredding moments in it. There's some really cool harmonics that give like this nice kind of ambiance to it. And then you get to the rest of the album, and it kind of explores some different stuff. Can You Get That is this really cool like blue-eyed soul gospel sort of deal. Really liked the lick in Hit It and Quit It. You and your folks, me and my folks. I'm in the belief that you like listening to it by yourself I don't think it's like the most optimal setting for it. I think you really need a crowd to kind of get the back and forth and really get the vibes of it. The second half of it is great, but that'd be my only critique on like that song in particular. Love the drum and bass in Super Stupid. And this album is only 36 minutes. So in theory, it's really quick. The problem though is that with the first song and the last song, it feels a lot longer than it actually is. So like there are times where I'm like, all right, like let's kind of get going here. And then yeah, I kind of have a first for favorite and least favorite, but I'll get to that later.
Okay, I'll go next then. So this is kind of one of those albums that is in legend territory. From like the sphere that I'm in.
Because Maggot Brain itself was on the top 500, was it not?
136,
no.
I think it was.
I know it's in like the top albums. I know.
Yeah, top albums. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Rolling Stone, some of my favorite critics think it's one of the greatest albums ever made. So I went into this with like really high expectations, which I know I really shouldn't do, but like when you get praise like that, it's kind of hard not to. And boy, did it live up to it. I fucking loved this album. I think I also was like introduced to it at like just the right time because I went for a walk in my neighborhood and I was finishing up Mission Bell. And then I went right into this and it was starting to like get dark. And like listening to the title track as you're walking in the dark, as like there's like a clear sky above you with like just like the stars out, was the most perfect setting I could have thought of to start listening to it. And I love the like the organ on Hit It and Quit It. Can you get to that? Like the funk in that is just like so perfect. That little pocket that they find for that groove is just absolutely mint. There is one song on the back half of the album that just did not work for me because it kind of went a little bit too hard in its experimentation. Like nobody decided to say no to some things. But funk as a genre overall is one that I really like for a limited amount of time. Usually, after a while, I'm like, all right, let's move on to like something else. But this was one that I could listen to over and over and over again. This entire album.
I think you just kind of hit it on the nail for me. Funk is a genre I respect more than I enjoy. And while I enjoy it in a certain way. Give me Flashlight, give me Atomic Dog. Actually, weirdly similar to my vibe with Hadestown. A song structure that's structured and funk, absolutely love. This experimentation, long songs, going to different spots, I can vibe with, I respect. I get it, but it's not as much my vibe. And when I saw Funkadelic, I was like, all right, we're going on a journey. Let's see how weird this shit gets. And when it got really, really weird, I was like, ooh. But when it didn't, I'd also say the Brooklyn, you're right. The first song and the last song being so long, it felt longer. So I was like, all right, let's get to the next one. Re-listening to the middle the middle section, I'm like, I probably would have enjoyed that a lot more if it was in a different order. So with my score and my opinion here, put whatever bias you want on it in terms of like this kind of funk is like not stuff I would listen to on my own regularly, but I would definitely be very, very happy if I'm at a get together for my dad and his friends and they're playing this in the background. I'm like, all right, cool vibe. I'm enjoying this. Yeah, that's where I'm at with this. It's Funkadelic. So like you can't not respect it. So yeah.
I hear where you're going.
Oh my god, I didn't realize my mic was on.
How many of us played it in the
And there
background
goes the show
for all night? Wait, am I muted?
The one time.
You picked the perfect moment. That was great.
God damn it.
So this was an album like I was always familiar with because I remember my uncle when he had his like stash of vinyl. I remember the image of the cover, and I remember as a kid being freaked out by it because it's kind of jarring, when you're like 6 years old, see something like this, and you're just kind of like, I don't want to know what this is. So this was kind of like one of those albums that kind of like lived in my head, but I never really ventured into. So this was like the first time I ventured into the full album because I was already familiar with the title track, Maggot Brain, being a guitar player. George Clinton as a guitar player is in a echelon that is kind of difficult to describe because there are a lot of factors in play here, mainly the letters L, S, and D, but that's another conversation. But what's crazy about Maggot, the title track, is he recorded that in one take. He was high off his ass, but he did it in one take, and that's what makes it really incredible. And it's almost like you have to take like Maggot Brain and then you take Wars of Armageddon. Like those are kind of like the two tracks everybody looks at, and everything in between it is kind of like a different phase too, because it's like some of it is George Clinton, some of it is, oh my god, why am I blanking on the name? Edward Hazel. Like this was kind of like where the band was kind of split in a way, because when you go into like stuff like Can You Get to That and Hit and Quit It, like this is when you start seeing like some of those early days when it was the Parliament, when George Clinton was involved with that. You see a lot more of like the funk aspect and some of like them doo-wop elements even with that, like because you get a lot of really good like classic drum doo-wop stuff, great vocal harmonies. You and your folks, having like a really like good lyrical writing with that nice groove to it. Super Stupid, like Kirk like alluded to, like this is where you get that classic Jimi Hendrix fuzz wah style sound, really good bass thumping through here. And it's just like you could the musicianship here. This is one of those bands where it's like watching them live is probably more of a treat than anything, because you're seeing people who know the craft of structuring a song and they can just keep going with it. And you can see a 17-minute song play out. Will you get exhausted by the end of it? Most likely, but you're seeing people who understand their craft really well. And that's where this album kind of takes like a different shape. And that's where it's like the first and last song kind of like display that. It's like it's showing you what they're capable of in terms of their musical knowledge. Everything in between is kind of the more approachable. And then you have like the kind of shoegazy instrumentals that can get kind of lost to some people. But if you stick with it, you get a really solid album. And it's one that's like, I'm begging to listen on vinyl through loudspeakers and just hearing everything. Yeah. Because this would be a true experience.
And just to reflect some of the stuff Jeff was saying was going on with the band, I found this on Wikipedia. Basically, the band broke up after this album and is talking about the reasons why.
Yeah.
It says here, guitarist Tall Ross reportedly had a traumatic drug experience after getting into a, quote, acid eating contest, then snorting some raw speed before completely flipping out and did not perform with the group again.
Wow.
I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised. But
if you ever want to listen, like read about George Clinton, he is a fascinating individual for so many reasons.
And Holtzman, well,
this was the one I was waiting on, and this was the album I thought I'm like, he's gonna have something to say.
this was a weird album. Although with a title like Maggot Brain, that's to be expected. The opening track was good, although the lack of words and basically being just a guitar solo made it feel really long. Boo. After that, Can You Get to That, Hit It and Quit It, and You and Your Folks were all varying levels of enjoyable. Generally a solid vibe, really good instrumentation, although the lyrics left a bit to be desired. It's Funkadelic. Okay. Super Stupid really worked for me. The drumming beat throughout was fantastic and gave a really interesting blend of R&B with that 70s rock sound. Easily my favorite track. And then it was followed up by Back in Our Minds, a song I really didn't like. That pinging sound throughout was really grating immediately, and its presence through the whole song made it a hard listen. The final song recovers it a fair bit, although again, it felt quite a bit long. To be fair, it was. Overall, a weird album with a solid stretch of songs, but nothing I really loved, and one song I really, really didn't like. Well, Holtzman, that's funk. That's 70s like psychedelic funk music for you. Like, yeah, I'm assuming that's a genre that you will never get into if that's the case. All right, Kirk, let's wrap this thing up. Give us your score, favorite and least favorite.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Favorite is tough because, like I said, there's so many tracks are doing so many different things. It's hard to like pick like, oh, I like this the most. Hold a gun to my head. I might go with You and Your Folks, Me and My Folks. It just has that drum beat I was talking about. Was just such a weird sound and just kind of really sucked me in. My least favorite probably is the title track. I like the opening, monologue, but again, the guitar solo isn't bad. But of all the things on this album, you have a 9-minute guitar solo, which is it's okay. And I know Brooklyn was talking about a lot of like technical stuff going on. Maybe I didn't pick up, but it's fine. But I mean, then you have all this like really weird, crazy stuff, and Bruce talking about. I love the weird stuff. That's what I liked about this. You have these like really weird, cool things going on. They're 2-3-minute songs. It's like, give me 10 minutes of Super Stupid. Like if that would be 10 minutes, they just jammed on that. I would have loved that. But the fact that the guitar solo is the long thing, and even like War on Armageddon, that's another long instrumental track. But I think there's a lot more going on. There's kind of telling a story with that, so I didn't mind that one as much. But yeah, I think it's that was a tough bookend with those 10 minutes, on either side. But I think the rest of it was pretty breezy.
Holtzman gave it a score of 5 out of 10. His favorite track, as he said, was Super Stupid. Worst track, Back in Our Minds. Brooklyn, let's go to you next.
This is an 8. A full point up though if you're in the shed. Incredible shed album. I was alluding to it earlier. My favorite is Wars of Armageddon. I really like the instrumentation, really good drum work in there, really cool electric organ solo, and probably my favorite way to close an album of all the albums that we're talking about, like just that distinct choice of having like the sound of war kind of end it, and I really like that kind of take you out of the album. My least favorite though is also Wars of Armageddon, because like Andrew was saying, people did not say no to a couple of choices here. And it's like too psychedelic, too experimental. It's like,
do you have a problem with kiki clocks in your song?
Yeah.
Like, why? Yeah, like there were some howls in here that don't really make sense. And it's like you have this great musicianship in this song, but you're ruining it for the sake of just being different.
Oh, stop it.
I still gave it an 8.
Stop it. I loved the crazy ass shit that was happening through that song. I am giving it a 9 out of 10. I think that this album is absolutely incredible. My favorite track on the album is the title track, Maggot Brain. Like that guitar solo just like hit me at like the right, absolute pinpoint right moment in time. And I thought it's just like absolutely incredible to listen to. I agree with Holtzman though. Back in our minds, nobody said no. Nobody said no during the making of that song, and that one just was like the absolute screeching halt that this album has. It's the only moment that it has a moment like that, though. Rue.
Take this with as much bias, grain of salt as you will, because again, Funkadelic is Funkadelic. 6.8 for me. And I'm with Cam. Best to worst is Super Stupid in the back of our minds. I was vibing to Super Stupid, and then the weird shit happened, and I was like, guys, come on. Woo, y'all were having a good time that night.
And Jeff.
I'm going to give this a 7.75. So this is like the album where it's like, if you look at the two instrumentals, that's kind of like one part. And then everything in between those is another part. And that's where it's kind of like you're either going to vibe with one area or the other. But for me, the best track is going to be Super Stupid. I would say like agreeing with Kirk. Give me like a 10-minute version of this song. I was like, because this is like the best way to kind of pay homage to like that classic Hendrix style sound, as well as like paying it like homage to like your doo-wop and funk roots as well. And yeah, I'm gonna give the same sentiments. Worse is back in our minds. I would say that instrument that you're hearing, that pinging sound, that is the flexitone, people. And whoever was on that, man, they told him, they're like, we want more flexitone, and he went for that one.
More cowbell.
I was gonna say more flexitone people, and he went. I would say that man had a great time.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. We have our panel and our albums for the next episode, though.
But before the albums.
Was that?
What was our favorite album that wasn't ours?
Oh my God! It's been
a while. I really thought he was like gonna segue into that, and I was gonna wait. It's good because I was like, wait a second, we gotta pick our favorite album.
Thank you, because we got to see if any other album joins the Turntable Hall of Fame. We only have 2 so far. Just listen, and Beloved Paradise Jazz.
How do you get in the Hall of Fame?
Everybody picks your album as their favorite of the episode, aside from you.
I got you.
So I'll go first, actually. My favorite is easily Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. Just absolute bangers, except for that one song. Whoops, that's not it. God damn it, Brooklyn, how did you do this? Without So yeah, that's mine. Rue, how about you?
I gave this album a higher score than the man who picked it. It's Mission Bell by Amos, for sure. Man can sing.
Respect.
Bangs that off.
All right, Jeff, how about you?
This was tough, because it's like I liked every album kind of like for their own ways, and but ultimately I think I gotta go with Logic's album. I thought the Incredible True Story was one that made me want to pursue him more and made me want to respect him more. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay, Kirk.
It's tough. It's between 2. I'm going to give a really strong honorable mention to Mission Bell, but I got to go with Hadestown. And based on how everybody else judges, I guess I'm doing it wrong because I'm not focusing enough on it being an album, and just I'm looking at the music, the experience, and I just really enjoyed everything I heard from that. So I'm going to go with that one.
And Brooklyn.
It's going to be Mission Bell. Amos Lee. It's the one that I would re-listen to.
All right. Holtzman didn't send me that his pick for this because I didn't ask, to be honest.
What was his highest rated?
What's that?
What was his highest rated?
That wasn't his own.
Yeah.
It was
Mission
his
Bell?
own. Mission Bell, yeah, because he had that in 8.
Yeah.
All right. So, as I was alluding to before, we have our panelists for next month's episode. Our panel, including Brooklyn and myself, are going to be Jake Marangoni, Kelly Meehan, and Cody Newberry. So, the albums are Carnival of the Animals. It is a classical suite. So it's a classical music episode. Yay! Then we have Begin to Hope by Regina Spektor. Starfire by Caitlin Smith. Bad Out of Hell by Meatloaf. And Rumors.
Is Chris
by
Clark on this
Fleetwood
episode? Is it sequel to Chris Clark?
We don't mention that name. We don't mention. I was going to allude to it on the episode.
What was that last album, Bar?
Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
There we go.
Rumors on.
So that is going to be a jammed pack episode. So Kirk, Rhye, Jeff, thank you all so much for coming on. I know it was a longer episode, but we had more albums to talk about than we normally do. So thank you for powering through it. Thank you also for bringing absolutely fantastic music on. And we hope to have you all again soon. Brooklyn, any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No.
All right. Well, with that, guys, thanks for watching the Turntable. We will be back next month. And keep on rocking.
Drive safely.